Our next position is Ketu in Leo and Rahu in Aquarius. Again, this is fire and air, so this is a social issue again. The way I wrote it up here is individuality, which is Ketu in Leo, individuality versus society, which is Rahu in Aquarius. What is society? Society, in this term I'm using it, is any group of people. Okay? It can be a small group of people. It can be everyone in your city. Doesn't matter. Individuality versus society of some sort, which means groups of people. And a group means two or more, okay? Alright. This is where the balance needs to be achieved. Ketu in Leo is very skilled at creating its own destiny based on its individual creative urges. Okay? This makes Ketu in Leo tend to be very creative, very self-creative, very self-expressive, very capable of coming up with original ideas and putting them into motion. Okay? And it's all based on their individuality, which is basically their own unique experiences. Okay? That's their strengths. Now their weakness, Rahu in Aquarius, where they're developing, is seeing how they can fit in to the group, how their creativity and their urges and their desires can fit into the group, into society, can fit with other people. And Ketu in Leo thinks it's very secure. In its own little perfectly misted world, Ketu in Leo feels really secure with themselves. I can create my own destiny. I can do what's important to me. And they feel secure in that. But then when confronted with Aquarius, which is groups, they start feeling insecure because they realize that, how do I fit into this group? You know, how do I fit into and work with a group of people? How do I make what I know, what's important to me, also be a benefit to other people? And how do I get what's beneficial, how do I find something that's beneficial to other people, be beneficial to me as well? Okay? So Rahu in Aquarius kind of shows that they're really not that secure, but making them feel very uncomfortable in group situations. Okay? They just don't feel as solid as they thought they were. They just don't have the confidence when they're around groups of people that they did when they were all on their lonesome, which is Ketu and Leo. And Leo's very territorial. And that's another element here. Leo is the most territorial sign. So these people are very confident. Another way to look at it is in their own territory. So their own territory is whatever they have established is their world. Okay? You know, so if you're an astrologer, you have this little world of astrology and astrology conferences that you might be really secure in because that's your territory. But there's lots of other territories out there, and that's the Rahu and Aquarius. So when Leo's either with groups of people or in new territory, unfamiliar ground, that's when they start feeling less secure. Okay? And they don't understand how to fit into that new territory. So the Ketu in Leo is the astrologer who's comfortable in the territory of astrology, but now who maybe goes to a real estate conference and feels really out of sync and out of place there. Okay? Whatever, it's just to give you that general idea. So Rahu in Aquarius is feeling very insecure around those groups of people or in those new territory. And they will try to compensate for that, which is always the quality of Rahu. And there's one or two ways that Rahu and Aquarius will compensate. One thing it will do, it may try to force itself to fit in. And it'll go to an extreme in that group. Okay? It'll try to be the best in that group. It'll try to be exactly what that group dictates to an extreme level. Like trying to prove that I'm the one that belongs here the most. I'm the one that meets the qualifications of this group the most. Okay? So as an example, a high school example. Say this Ketu and Leo guy moves to a high school where everyone's a punk rocker. And everyone is, you know, got great haircuts, listens to punk, has lots of tattoos and piercings. Well, the Rahu and Aquarius, they might decide, well, I'm going to be the coolest, get the coolest tattoos and the most piercings. And they'll try to be the ultimate thing there. And they'll go to the extent of getting tattoos they don't even like, just because the group likes them. Okay? they'll get piercings in places they don't even like because that's the coolest thing to do. Okay? So they may try really, really hard to fit in. The other thing that they'll try to do sometime is they'll just become a total rebel. And they'll just decide, I'm going to be... So the first way, they try to make that group their territory. Because again, Ketu and Leo is secure in being the king of his own territory. So one way they'll try to do is they try to become king of that new territory or king of that new group and do everything to the best way possible or the most extreme way to show that I'm the man, I'm the king here. Even to the expense of selling themselves out, meaning doing things that they wouldn't do all by themselves. And then the other way is they decide to just be the individual and not fit in and do everything completely different and say, I'm just so different from you guys and you guys don't mean anything from me. So there'll be this arrogance of, you know, you guys are beneath me. Why should I even play in your group? I'm way better than that. Okay? Either way, it's a compensation. And since either way is a compensation, they end up having a breakdown, which is they hate. They have the inability to feel love or connection with their peers, with their group, or in their new territory. Okay? And there's just no connectivity. You know, Aquarius is such an interesting sign. You know, we know it's an air sign, right? But it's symbolized by a man holding a jug of water. And the places it rules is an island out in the ocean. So it always has connotations of water with it. Okay? But it's an air sign. And the symbol for Aquarius is actually water. Okay? Jaimini says that the Atmakarakas in Aquarius, a person will make water tanks and dig wells and that kind of stuff. So there's this connotation of water to Aquarius, but even though it's an air sign. And so what Aquarius is, it's the sign, it's a social sign because it's an air sign. Like we said, social signs are all the air signs are social signs. So it's a social-centered sign. But its symbolism has a lot of water in it because it's the connectivity and the growth, which are water properties, that we make socially. It's the social growth, the social connectivity we have with our fellow man. That's what Aquarius is. Okay? And that's the step that needs to be made before a person can have liberation, which is Pisces. Okay? They got to have that social connectivity, which means they got to be able to have the capacity to feel love for everybody they come across. They have to have the capacity to care for everyone they come across. And of course, that only can happen when we really feel good about ourselves. When we really love ourselves and are secure within ourselves, then we can have compassion and caring for everyone we meet. Otherwise, we only can have compassion and caring for people who validate us, and then we hate everyone who doesn't validate us. Okay? So Aquarius is where the self starts developing that compassion, Rahu and Aquarius, and caring for everyone. So the breakdown stage of total failure is hatred and inability to feel love or caring or compassion for anyone around them. Okay? And that's a really miserable state to be in. So what a Rahu and Aquarius has to learn how to do, instead of compensating by trying really hard to fit in or deciding that they're way above fitting in, what Rahu and Aquarius has to do is learn to be themselves amongst groups of people. Okay, and that means finding the things that are similar to other people and enjoying those parts without sacrificing the things about themselves that are different. So that means maintaining one's individuality while finding the areas that we can connect with on people. There's always some areas of similarity between everyone we meet. Everyone we meet has something they can give us and something we can give them. That's natural to our own way of being. So Rahu and Aquarius need to find those things. And then, without sacrificing who they are, they have to hold on to that Ketu and Leo. They have to be who they are, sharing those things of similarity. Okay? So this is the person that in the punk, high school decides that, okay, I understand tattoos can be neat, but I don't want a double tattoo. I'm going to go get a Ganesha tattoo. So they find the similarity of going down to the tattoo shop together, But this person doesn't want a devil tattoo, so he gets the Ganesha tattoo, which is his individuality, merging with the group individuality of marching down and getting tattooed. Okay? So that's what it comes down to, finding where we can share out with other people, to have that connectivity with groups, with other people, and a group is 2 or more, okay? Having that connectivity. Now this might sound sort of like Libra, but Libra is more a trading type thing, where you give something and get something back, okay, like in a marriage partnership or business partnership. Aquarius is not about trading. It's not about giving. It's just we're on the planet together, and we want to enjoy everyone we come across. We want to find human companionship and meaning in every human experience, which we find through seeing where there's a similarity. And not trading that similarity, but enjoying that similarity. Okay? So it's not like one person buys a tattoo for me and I buy a tattoo for them, or I tattoo them and they tattoo me. It's not that kind of sharing. It's not a trade. It's not a business deal. It's, wow, we both have tattoos. Let me see yours. Yours is cool. Let me see yours. Yours is cool too. All right, nice to meet you. See you later, dude, and never think about him again, maybe. But there was that moment of human connectivity through the similarity without sacrificing one's individuality. So when Rahu in Aquarius does that, then we've got Ketu and Leo mastered, which means we have a secure individual. We have someone who will be themselves, not sell out, but has the human connectivity to see their similarities with other people, and realizing that having similarities, having things to share with other people that make them feel belong with other people, don't make them any less of an individual. Okay, but that's actually what makes for the best human experiences. So I always counsel people with this. What you need to do is you need to find the things about people that you share, that you can enjoy, okay, that are the same, and that are both good, and share it on that level, enjoy each other on that level, and the other stuff, don't worry about it. Don't get involved in the other stuff. So if you meet someone who's an astrologer, you share astrology. So now this is something you guys can come together about and have a meaningful human experience. Okay? Let's say one of the astrologers uses sidereal zodiac, another one uses tropical zodiac. Alright, now you've got a difference in individuality. Rahu and Aquarius will eventually learn how to still enjoy the astrological information that can be shared, even though they're using different zodiacs, by not getting into zodiacal debates and finding the similarities in the things they can talk about. Mars aspecting Mercury is going to have the similar effect, regardless of what zodiac we're using. It's Mars is aspecting Mercury. So they'll talk about that with the person and learn more, instead of talking about, but my Mars is in Leo. The Mars is in Leo for me, and for you it's in Virgo, and fighting. That's not the way to do it. The place is to find that similarity, enjoy each other on that level, learn from each other on that level, and where two people are not going to come together, where they're oil and salt, or they have strong opinions about, they just don't go there. And then we can be friends with everyone we come across. Okay, with everyone who comes across, we can be friends. Okay, and that's a good practice for anybody, but Rahu and Aquarius really needs to learn that. Other people will be more naturally better at that from the get-go, but the more we can learn that, the better we'll be when it comes to dealing with people. Okay, the other option is we get the opposite, where we get Rahu and Leo and Ketu and Aquarius. So the Ketu and Aquarius, now we've got a person who's coming from a source of feeling secure amongst groups, amongst peers, feeling like they can grow and mature and make the best of their lives amongst group situations or social situations. Okay? In fact, they feel so confident in that area that they naturally sort of take on a magnetism. And people tend to be drawn towards people with Ketu and Aquarius. And I oftentimes feel like Ketu and Aquarius people can somehow add to their life's experiences. And so they're always people are oftentimes happy to sort of go along with the Ketu and Aquarius person's vision of something. You know, they very easily become the group leader, I would say. Okay? And that's because their capacity for making group stuff work is very high, and somehow people pick up on that, and that social need within people who wants to be part of something bigger is drawn to these people, okay, who have Ketu and Aquarius. So, the Ketu and Aquarius thinks it's really secure in the group, okay, and it finds it easy to get validated for other people by other people. In fact, Ketu and Aquarius so oftentimes doesn't even realize it when other people insult them or devalue them. They don't even recognize it sometimes because they're so used to being accepted in a group that even if somebody does devalue them, they don't really recognize it as an insult because they're just so in the habit of everyone, I just fit together so nicely with everyone, okay, that they don't often see how they're not being accepted. Okay, that's the ironic thing. Because Ketu and Aquarius is being accepted into, has had a karmic background of being accepted in groups and living through groups. But that doesn't mean they're going to be capable with all groups, because all groups are different and bring about different issues. And that weakness is shown in Rahu and Leo, which is basically the need for the person to develop their own individuality. And through developing their individuality, eventually finding the group that really reflects who they are. Okay? Otherwise, Ketu and Aquarius too easily fits into a group that may not even validate who they are. And that's usually what happens with Ketu and Aquarius. They just get into social situations and groups that don't really validate who they are, but they still feel validated in that group. And they just kind of go along, not even realizing that they're getting devalued in that group. Had one client, as a good example, who, really intelligent person, highly intelligent, person who wanted to do good in the world with a caring heart and with lots of healing abilities, who gets into a situation of being a model, having boyfriends who are multimillionaires, getting breast implants, just this whole cultural New York artistic model group in the 70s and 80s, okay? Just fell into that group and just ruled her life for years. And one day she woke up, Rahu and Leo just said, hey, this is not me. And at that point, overnight, threw all of her junk away, gave away thousands of dollars of stuff, flushed thousands of dollars worth of jewelry down the toilet, had this huge purging of all that stuff which never meant anything to them, and became a psychic healer. So, Ketu and Aquarius has the difficulty of identifying themselves in groups to a fault where they lose themselves and get swallowed up by that group and lose any sense of individuality until they get woken up by Rahu and Leo. That Rahu and Leo basically shows them that they really, when it comes down to it, they don't have any self-esteem. They're not standing up for themselves. They're letting other people dictate who they are, how they should behave. They're letting groups dictate their taste. Like the client told me, they said, I realized I had a $30,000 Oriental rug, and I didn't even care if I had a rug in my apartment. I just did it. I just bought it because everyone bought one. Okay? And so they chucked that rug out the window too. All right. So there's just not that self-esteem to stick up for anything that's really them. They're too pack conscious. Now, to compensate for that, Rahu and Leo try to demand respect, or like I said, they feel like because they're part of this group, they're important. They feel like buying that Oriental rug makes them important. They feel like doing the group things makes them important, validates them. Okay? And they feel they should get group respect for those things they do that the group dictates. And also, like I said, they're so used to being validated by groups, they don't even realize when they're amongst a group of people, when it comes down to it, don't really even care about who that person really is, which means they're with groups of people who really aren't even validating that person. Okay? And this person realized that and doesn't have a single friend left over from those days, because they realized none of those people really cared about who they were as a person. Okay? Way too much group existence there. So, that's sort of how Rahu tries to compensate. It tries to fit into the group so hard that it gets respect for being in that group, to do the best, and there'll be a tendency towards arrogance, lack of confidence, and they'll try to be arrogant. And arrogant is just a way of demanding respect from the group. Okay. Now, of course, that's not going to work. So the breakdown again is hatred, inability to feel love or connectivity for anybody, because we don't have self-esteem. If we don't have self-love, which is another word for self-esteem, we really can't love other people. If we're not really validating ourselves as individuals, we can't begin to care for other people. And so the breakdown stage of Rahu and Leo is hating everyone, not tolerating anyone. Just thinking everyone else is crazy, ridiculous, or whatever. Okay? But that's not a cure. That isolates them and separates them from everybody. Okay? That's Rahu and Leo in its very own territory with nobody to connect with. And that's the bottom line. And again, no connectivity with people means inability to feel love, the breakdown stage of Aquarius or Leo. What Rahu and Leo needs to learn how to do, it needs to learn to develop its individuality, to find out who it really is, what it really desires to create as an individual instead of the group it wants to follow. Saturn is a follower. Aquarius, Saturn rules it. Leo's the king. What do they want to do as an individual? What kingdom do they want to create for themselves and rule? And once they develop that kingdom, then they'll find the group with which to share that kingdom with. And that's what this person went and did. They became very good in their field and then started sharing. Then they really felt connected to this other group of like-minded people. And that group became a big part of their lives. But they approached it as an individual. They didn't do everything the way that group did the same way. They didn't just follow blindly. They developed their own thoughts and actions about it, did things their own way, and enjoyed their time in the group to get the support of the other people who had the similar goal, although they might have been going about it in a very different way. So Rahu and Leo needs to develop its individuality, find its territory, decide where it wants to be king, what type of king it is, what's it meant to be, follow its own creative inspiration. And once they're doing that, they'll naturally find a group with which to share that. And then they'll be connected to people once again. And then Ketu and Aquarius has mastered the goal of connectivity, because now we have an individual connecting. Before, we just had a group prop thinking it was connecting. But not until Rahu goes into Leo do we get that individuality that really can connect with the group. And the Leo-Aquarius axis is a tough axis, in a way. And the reason is because Aquarius is such a very, very tough sign. Aquarius is the sign of human connectivity, but it's the sign of Saturn, who's a loner. So right away we know, when we're talking Aquarius, we got problems. Okay? Now, according to Hindu philosophy, God first incarnates in stones, then the soul incarnates in plant life, then animal life, then higher forms of animal life, and finally the soul incarnates in human life. And through that whole process, there's a process of individuality that takes place. Spirit in stone has no individuality at all. It's a lump of rock. Has no sentiments really. They have done experiments, like Bose did experiments where he could measure that inanimate objects like metal actually had feelings, actually hurt if you dump acid on them. But it's at the lowest level of possible reaction, okay? They're as inert as things can get. Spirit is not very conscious in rocks. Then in plants, spirit, the soul starts getting conscious. But it's not self-conscious. That's why if you're in a greenhouse and say you're in a greenhouse of basil, and you cut one basil plant and kill it, pain will register in the basil plant on the opposite side of the farm. Every one of those plants will feel that other plant's pain, okay? Because their consciousness is not so individualized. Also with the plant, you can cut a stem off the plant and stick it in the ground, and it'll grow into a whole new plant. You can cut the plant's arm off, stick it in the ground, and watch a whole new plant grow. The reason the plant can do that, because its consciousness is not so individualized that the plant says, you cut my hand off. And the hand's thinking, I'm just a hand, how can I live, and die? If I cut my arm off, throw it on the ground, it's not going to grow into another one of me. It's not going to grow into a person, because the consciousness of a human is so limited that the hand goes, I'm just a hand. Without the rest of me, I'm useless, so I'm just going to rot and die. But plants don't think that way. Plants' consciousness is not restricted to their physical form. And so you can transplant them, you can graft with them, you can do all those cool plant things, okay, that they do. Then in lower life forms, like say, take a crab for instance. You can cut a crab's arm off, and it'll grow a new arm, okay? The reason the crab does that, because when his arm gets cut off, even though he's more self-conscious than a plant, he is more self-conscious than a plant. He's not anchored to the ground like the other plants. He can move towards he can move towards other crabs or away from other crabs. Whatever. He's not as connected as plants. But he is connected enough that if his arm gets cut off, he can grow a new one. Because he doesn't think, oh no, my arm got cut off. That's the end of my arm. This is me. It's just, he doesn't think that way. New arm just grows. Okay? Then as you get into more evolved animals, say like a dog, if you cut a dog's arm off, he won't grow a new arm back. Okay? But dogs and animals, like mammals, higher animal forms, they actually communicate telepathically. Telepathically not the right way. But what's going through one mind of one high animal actually gets transferred to the animals of like species around it. So they've done experiments where they'll take a monkey and they'll teach this monkey a trick. And they'll take that monkey 10 times to learn to do the trick. And then they'll take a group of other monkeys that were in the vicinity but which had no contact with this other monkey. And they'll teach those monkeys those tricks, and those monkeys will learn the same trick in 1 or 2 tries. It's like because the first monkey learned it, some of that intelligence automatically got transferred to the intelligence of the other monkeys. So their consciousness is not so limited to just their bodies. They have just this body, but they still reach out and communicate with their own species in a way that's beyond words, that just kind of travels through the ether. Like telepathy is not the right word for it, but it's almost like a telepathic thing. There's been several studies where they've done this. They also believe that animals sort of just have a knowingness about what each animal's needs are and what each one's feeling and going through. Like a pack of wolves, they're in touch with each other, they're communicating with each other on a subtle level at all times. Because their consciousness is not so limited to their own self. Then we get humans, the highest life form, and humans are so individualized that we don't even have the capacity to connect most of the time anymore. We find it threatening and scary to connect to our own species. We're so individualized that it's become painful. And that's the sign of Aquarius. That's where that individualization happens. Through all those evolutions, Spirit's goal has been to get completely individualized, to become a completely separate entity, which has its own thoughts, its own body, and so on. A completely self-contained, individualized entity. And that journey finishes at Aquarius. And that is the psychological journey that Spirit takes. That needs to get perfected at Aquarius. When it gets perfected at Aquarius, we get a person who's completely secure with their individuality, who's free from psychological complexes, who is who they are, and doesn't compensate for any of their weaknesses or lacks. They just realize, this is who I am, this is what I'm like, and it's totally cool. At that point, a person is free from psychological garbage, and they don't have any psychological needs. They don't have needs to be validated, and doesn't hurt when they're devalued. Okay? And at that point, the spiritual battle actually takes place right here, just in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. That's why Yogananda said, most of what people think is a spiritual battle is really just a psychological battle. Once the psychological battle is won, the spiritual battle is very quickly fought and won. Well, Aries through Aquarius is the psychological battle. And the spiritual battle takes place just in 1/12 of the space, just in Pisces here, the sign of liberation. So anyway, when you get the Ketu or Leo in this Aquarius-Leo axis, Ketu or Rahu there, what you're basically getting is you're getting a person who's really working on that level of individualization, of really being secure as an individual, where they don't need validation from other people. and they don't get hurt when they're devalued either or not accepted. They are who they are, and they fully accept themselves to such a level that they have no psychological complexes, and they have no self-absorption. You know, psychological complexes require self-absorption. So they're totally free from that level of self-absorption and psychological complexes. And then they're ready. That's the goal of the Aquarius-Leo axis, at which point Pisces is coming up next to liberate them. Okay? So this is a bit of a tough position because it's a very psychologically centered position. It's a position of the person developing, perfecting their psychology and freeing themselves from all complexes.